If you want to buy a property, how will you know if this property is also going to be a great investment? The basic things that I need to know is, but what is investment? I see people get confused between savings and investing. A saving is when you put money aside, but the investment is when you want to reach a specific goal. Let me show you how I'm doing this. Say, for example, I want 10 million in 10 years' time, but I've only got 1,000 Rand that I can spend. We call this your surplus. So let me go and show you quickly. So in Excel, I simply say I want 10 million, I've got 1,000 Rand per month. In 10 years' time, what growth must I get? And you'll see this, then my financial freedom growth rate at this point will be 64.58%. But now I can start playing around. I want to close that so that I do not confuse you. What if I want to do this in 5 years? What must happen? Oh, my money must work harder for me. In other words, it must work at 151%. What if I've got 5,000 Rand per month and I want to retire in 5 years' time? My growth on my money must be 108%. What if I want to do this in 10 years' time and I've got 5,000? I need only 43.83%. This then becomes my financial freedom growth rate. My financial freedom growth rate will always be the benchmark that I'm going to use in order to determine if this property that I want to buy for myself to stay in, if this property is going to be a great property or not. The chances are that you are renting at the moment. And let's assume that you can qualify for a bond of about $1 million. The banks will come back to you and say, okay, at 11.75% over 20 years is going to cost you, let's say, 11,000 just now. We're going to get into the real calculations a little bit later on, but just for now. And let's assume that currently you are renting for 7,000. This simply means that if you do not have another 4,000 Rand surplus, if you do not have that money, you cannot buy that property. Now, let's assume you've got the money. What then? Well, the difference between the 7,000 and the 11,000, that 4,000, this is your investment. Why do I say so? Because if I rent, then, and I've got that money in my budget, it means I've got 4,000 that I can invest in anything like unit trust or maybe endowment policy. If I do not get that growth, I'm busy with savings. If I do get that, I'm busy to invest. So it's a very straightforward calculation. Now that we've got this, let's go and find a property. I'm going to use a property. It's 1,045,000 Rand. It's a two-bedroom. It looks actually very nice. And we can immediately see that there's additional thing that we need to know, and that is that the additional cost in terms of the levies will be 987 Rand. Not only do we need to make provision for the bond repayment, we also have to make provision for the additional cost, because when I'm renting, I am not paying the rates in taxes. So this will come on top of what I have to pay in order for me to see if my budget is going to work out. Otherwise, I should not be buying this property. Now, I'm going to do analysis on the property. This means that one of the things that I need to know, property over the last 5 years did not grow with more than 4% on average. Now, of course, there's property that grew a lot better than that, and that there's property that made a loss. We assume that you do have that amount available then to buy this property. And now the fun starts. So I'm going to go into the Property Pro investment system, and I'll quickly take you through the process. In other words, we say the purchase price is 1,045,000. We also assume that you're going to buy this property directly from the developer, then everything is included. And we also assume that the banks are going to give you 100% bond. Now, this is not always the truth. It depends on your credit score, it depends on your situation. But for now, we assume that that is the case. We see that the purchase price is 1,045,000 because you buy this directly from the developer. In other words, there's no transfer duties and so forth. And 90% of the time, when they sell you this property, they're going to say there's no additional cost. Everything is included within that 1,045,000. Therefore, there's no deposit, there's no other cost. and therefore the bond will be R1,045,000. Now, let's then get into what's the interest rate option. Now, this of course is going to depend on what you can negotiate with the bank. In this case, let's say it's 11.76%, right? Over 20 years, the inflation rate, I'm going to make the inflation rate, let's call it 6%. Right? So 6% for the inflation rate. We're going to look at the capital growth rate. We said that on average over the last 5 years, not more than 4%. The monthly expenses will be that 987. Now, this you need to get from the estate agent or from the owner. Now, this is the important part. If I'm renting at the moment for 7,000 Rand, and this is where the trick is going to come in, I'm going to put in 7,000 Rand as if I'm renting this place, because let's face it, we need a roof over our head, and we can only look at the investment, the difference between what I'm spending at the moment and what it's going to cost me, because if I haven't got that money, I cannot invest. But that should become my investment. But most people are going to put that money in. They've got no idea how hard that money is going to work for them, and therefore it's not really an investment. It's going to be a saving. So anything less than what we'll need in terms of our financial freedom planner. Now, I've showed you the basics of that, but I can't show you the real one until we've done this calculation. And then we know if it's a great or not great investment. So I'm going to apply this to the rest of the 20 years, and then I'm going to save this property and do the assessment. What's the growth on my investment? In other words, on this difference between the rent and what the property plus the expenses are going to cost me, what is that going to be, and how much will that investment then be? Now it becomes fun, because as we can see here, it's 5,837 on average that I have to make provision for on top of the 7,000 Rand that I'm spending on rent at the moment. And then, of course, the growth in 5 years' time, okay, this is not great. It's only 0.69%. But we want to see this in 10 years' time. So in 10 years' time, if I look at the growth that we're going to get, is 6.65%. So now there's two things that I need to remember. How much is going to cost me additional? And if I look at the program, it tells me in the first year it's going to cost me 5,836 Rands. And if I look at how hard that money is going to grow for me, we see it's 6.65. So if you go back, I need 10 million in 10 years' time. We need to spend 5,800, and let's make it 37 to round it off. In 10 years' time, what growth must I get? I must get a 41%. Now we can go back simply to the Excel spreadsheet to determine your financial freedom growth rate. This becomes my benchmark, and if this property can't give me better than that, this is not an investment. This is like most people are buying. They think they are buying investments, but it's actually a massive drain on their money. Now that we know this, let's quickly test. So on 1,000 Rand per month, if I can get 64%, I'm going to have a 10 million as well. So we can immediately see that 64% is going to depend 100% on your skill level. In other words, if you do not have the skills when it comes to property investments, there's no ways that you'll be able to know how to get to that growth. The next thing that we're going to do is we're going to now see, but I'm going to change that to that and simply say for 5,837 at what's the growth? Well, the growth we know is only 6.65%, 6.65%. How much money will I have? I will have less than 1 million, but I need 10 million. Can you see how simple it is to calculate and to see if this specific property is going to help me to get to financial freedom? If it's not, I'm not going to buy that property. Now, this is something that I discovered way back in 1987. Now, property's got 27 variables. I've used today only there's the purchase price, then what's the bond going to be, then we calculate the interest on the bond. We said there's also the capital growth, what are the expenses, and then the last one, what are we paying rent at the moment. So when it comes to property, it's crucial that before we actually buy this property, we need to know how to do this little sum that I've just showed you. Because the moment that you do that and you start off right, then you're on your way to financial freedom. And it's because of these little calculations and because of the knowledge that I've got that we were financially free because of property within a 7-year period. So it is doable, but you first need to invest in yourself. Or that's the way that I see it. You don't have to agree with me. So if you are serious and you really want to get into this, then I'd like to invite you to my next Property Accelerator Masterclass. And in that masterclass, I'm going to show you what is possible from an investment point of view. So success is a progressive realization of a worthy goal. And that worthy goal is then to get to the 10 million with the amount of money that you've got available. So in this case, it's 41.76% that I need. Anything less than that means that you will not get to your goal. Therefore, it is not investment. But to do that, I need to know, can I qualify for this? Do I have that surplus? We call it your freedom number, and then we calculate it back. Then thirdly, what is my financial freedom growth rate? In this case, it's going to be on my surplus that I need to invest, 41.76%. What growth will I get? In this case, it's 6.65%, and therefore, I personally will not buy this property. Now, that whole process, I will show you in the Property Accelerator. And then I'm also going to show you what you can do to accelerate that growth and find the right properties. So if it's something that you are interested in, book. You'll find a link somewhere on this page, most of the time in the description area. And then I'm going to see you in the masterclass. Also, if you found value in this training sessions, let me know and ask me what questions would you like to know when it comes to property investment, especially on the investment portion, the legal side, and that you can find out anywhere else. But this kind of information, I'm not sure that there's a way that you'll find that out, or they're never going to tell that to you. It's that simple, because otherwise they're not going to sell the specific property. Okay, so in the comment section, let me know, and then I'll see you in the next training session.